Hare Krishna
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Sheetal Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Pradeep Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Krishna, Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam Chandan here.
Chandan Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Ravina Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, all right? Are you all right, Prabhuji?
Yeah, why?
No, Prabhuji, I was just, I just spoke to Srisha Mataji today.
Yeah, we became sick,
Yes, Prabhuji.
but now this is the 10th day. We are kind of recovering, almost recovered. So,
Thank goodness, Prabhuji.
so now we are almost doing much better.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay. Uh, Deepika Mataji, how you are?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji Dandavat Pranam.
You're doing well?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Just was a little bit concerned about Farmington Hills, but was in constant touch with Praveen Prabhu and Hemant Prabhu
And they are doing.
for the updates.
Yeah, we are doing much better. Everyone almost recovered. It's a phase we had to go through. We went through. Uh, but we are doing fine now. Maybe 3-4 days more. Maybe.
Yes, Prabhuji. Very glad. Very like I cannot express my happiness.
Okay. So maybe we can begin now. ओम अज्ञाततिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुं श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवंश्च। श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान सहागना ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितंश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं, यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम्। Okay. So today we will uh, uh, finish this chapter, and there are only very few verses remaining. And then we will start with 14th chapter. We will cover maybe just the first part of the 14th chapter. This 13th chapter onwards is how knowledge can bring um, renunciation from this material world, um, and how this knowledge leads to devotional service. Um, the beginning of this chapter, Arjuna asked 6 questions. Krishna answered in detail. Last week we saw one of the question Krishna answered for Arjuna is who is a super soul, and Krishna describes that uh, it's the super soul who is knowable. In other words, the object of knowledge. The purpose of the human form of life is to realize the Lord, and that's what Krishna spoke last week when we saw that this is the purpose of knowledge, and the object of knowledge is to know the Lord, is to realize the Lord. um, and how one can realize the Lord, we saw last week, is beginning with humility, service attitude, acceptance of spiritual master, performing devotional service onto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's how we realize the Lord. And the goal of life is to realize the Lord. Um, the more we do, the more sincerely we do, the more with in a humble mood, um, um, with sincerity, eagerness, enthusiasm, patience, determination. As we progress with this item of knowledge, then we realize the Lord. And in this particular section, Krishna is describing how the living entity is bound up in um, in this material world, um, and the living entity is changing bodies one after the another because of the desire of the living entity, because the living entity wants to enjoy in this material world. He is awarded based on his karma and his desire one of 8.4 million species of life. All these bodies are provided by material nature. The living entity, the spirit soul, has nothing to do with material nature, with Maya, with matter. Living entity is transcendental spiritual, does not mix with Maya. Krishna gives Krishna gives 2 examples in this particular section. Um, just like um, the sky, um, it's the sky is present, is all encompassing, is present everywhere, but does not mix with um, um, the air, the matter, the things in this material world. Although it's present, it does not mix with any of the thing. Um, Another example Prabhupada gave, just like air is present in the mud, air is present in the body, air is present in everywhere, air is there, but air does not mix. It's separately present in the body, in the mud, everywhere it's present, it does not mix. Likewise, the spirit soul is transcendental. It does not interact with material nature. It is transcendental, lying in the region of the heart, floating in 4 different kind of airs. But because of false identifying with the body, the living entity, with the desire to enjoy, not knowing how to find the real enjoyment, covered by illusory energy, desires, and based on those desires, the Lord sanctions, and the um, material nature awards different kinds of bodies as deserved by the living entity among 8.4 million species birth after birth. And as the living entity enters into a particular body, um, um, he follows the laws of that body. Every body follows certain laws. Like if we are in a lion body, we have to eat flesh. If we are in a cow body, we have to eat grass. So these are laws of the body. Every kind of body goes through particular suffering and particular enjoyment. And the living entity, based on the desire, he can decide which body he want to choose based on karma and desire. But once the living entity is transferred into a body, the living entity is forced to follow those laws. Prabhupada gives an example, just like if a living entity enters the body of a hog, then the living entity eats only stool. That's like hog's food. They go to this um, wet stool and dry stool, and that's what they eat. So the living entity suffers or enjoys based on the body awarded to him. The best course is to escape this material world and get a transcendental body. Um, just like the spirit soul, just like when we sit on a bullock cart, we can go at a speed of 5 miles per hour. When we sit on a regular car, we can go at 80 miles per hour. When we sit on a flight, we can go at 1000 miles per hour. When we sit in a bullock cart, we are bound by the laws of bullock cart. We cannot go beyond the speed if we are sitting in the bullock cart. Likewise, when we are in one of the 8.4 million species of life, we are bound by the material laws. We are not free at all. Um, so, in this verse, um, this is the last verse that we discussed last week, and we are beginning again from the same. Karya karana kartitve hetu prakriti uchyate. Prakriti or material nature is said to be the cause of material causes and effects. Purusha or the living entity is the cause of his own happiness and distress. So, material nature gives us the body. Um, Material nature is not responsible for the body it awards us. That is, we are responsible based on our desire and karma. And whatever happiness and distress we go through, um, that is ours, that we go through. Uh, so this is Prabhupada writes, there are 8.4 million, we discussed this, I'm reading it now. There are 8.4 million different species of life, and these varieties are creations of the material nature. Based on the desires, Jiva is allowed to live in this body or that. Once placed in some particular kind of body, he comes under the control of nature, because the body being matter act according to laws of nature. At that time, the living entity has no power to change that law. So we already discussed. This is what Prabhupada describes here. Okay. Uh, Purusha prakratasto hi bhungte prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangosya sad asad yoni janmashu. Now, Krishna is telling here why, um, what gives us different bodies. And here Krishna says sad asad yoni janmashu. Yoni is species. Good species sad, asad is bad species. So we are awarded good or bad species based on karanam guna sangosya, based on our um, um, the the mode of material nature, guna, sattva gun, rajogun, tamogun. We will discuss that. If you don't know much about sattvagun, rajagun, tamogun, mode of goodness, passion, ignorance, wait for this week and next week, and we will cover that. So the living entity is controlled by one of these modes. Just like these are three different frequencies. Just like you play a channel, you on a radio, you can change the frequency, and then you tune to one frequency and you get that particular radio channel. Uh, Likewise, there are three frequencies or three different modes, and we are controlled at some point of time by some or the other mode, and based on our interaction with matter, our interaction with gunas, rajogun, tamogun, sattvagun, we are awarded bodies. Um, an example that Krishna says, person who die in a mode of goodness gets a demigod's body. Person who dies in a mode of passion gets a human body, and person who dies in mode of ignorance gets an animal body, or a hellish body. So based on which mode we interact with, karana guna sango, based on which guna we are associating with, goodness, passion, ignorance, sad asad yoni janmashu, based on that we take birth in um, um, good or evil species. And um, the first line says, Bhungte Prakriti Jan Gunan. Bhungte is enjoy, Prakriti is matter. So Prabhupada translates the first two lines as the living entity in material nature, thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of material nature. So l- the topic of discussion is Purusha. Purusha means enjoyer. So question asked by Arjuna is, who is the enjoyer? And Krishna describes there are two kinds of enjoyers. Living entity is the enjoyer and the Lord is also the enjoyer. Both are enjoyers. But the difference is, as it says here, the living entity enjoys the three modes of nature. The living entity is the enjoyer of matter, but the supreme lord, what kind of enjoyer is the supreme lord? Before we come there, something Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, unless one is situated in Krishna consciousness, his material consciousness will oblige him to transfer from one body to another because he has material desire since time immemorial. Whatever is our consciousness, um, based on our desires, material nature will force us um, 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 to take another body based on our desires. Mm, there is an example in the Puranas where one businessman, um, at the time of death, very much attached to his business and his wealth, became a rat in the shop, in the same shop. So based on our desire, um, one is awarded a particular body where he can fulfill that desire, but he has to, a living entity has to change that conception, that conception of what's important in life. He has to change that conception. That change can be affected only by hearing from authoritative sources. The best example is here, Arjuna is hearing the signs of God from Krishna. So before we came to Krishna consciousness, we have some conception of life, and that conception is mostly material because of our association. When we associate with people who are rich, we may desire, I want to become rich. Or when we associate with people with different desire, we develop so many desires. So we have formed a conception about our life based on how we are born and brought up and what we are doing. But that conception of life can be changed by hearing. Arjuna was covered by um, um, ignorance. Um, that's why we see in the first chapter he says, "I don't know what to do. Um, I want to fight. I cannot fight. I want the kingdom, but because I am a Kshatriya, I want to rule, but I don't want to kill, I don't know what to do. So when he heard from Krishna, the conception of his life changed, um, and he got a direction. He got a direction in life. So Prabhupada is telling, um, if our conception does not change, then based on our desire and how we live life, there are many species of life. So one has to change one's conception, one's understanding of life. And Prabhupada is telling, unless one is situated in Krishna consciousness, the consciousness will remain material. Um, and this conception of life can be changed by hearing from authoritative sources. As we hear from Bhagavad Gita, from Shrimad Bhagavatam, from pure devotees of the Lord, our life conception changes. Um, um, and that will save us. That will save us from sad asad yoni janmashu, from repeated births and deaths in this material world. Now, um, um, so the living entity is also the enjoyer, but he's a false enjoyer and he's trying to enjoy the matter. Um, and then there is another enjoyer which is transcendental enjoyer. उपादृष्टानुमन्ता च भारत भोक्ता महेश्वर परमात्मेति चाप्युक्तो देहेस्मिन् पुरुषा para. Upadrishta Anumanta. Upadrishta means there is another personality who is Upadrishta. Upadrishta means he he's he's seeing everything. He's overseeing everything. Upadrishta. Drishta means to see. Drishtva, to be seen. Drishta, to see. Upadrishta means he's overseeing everything. And Anumanta. Anumanta means he's sanctioning. He's sanctioning. Cha Bharata Bhokta Maheshwara. So I will read the translation now. Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor. So the Lord is also an enjoyer, but he is a transcendental enjoyer. The conditioned soul is also an enjoyer, but he is an enjoyer of matter. So transcendental enjoyer means, what does he enjoy? He does not enjoy matter, but what does he enjoy? He enjoy devotion. He enjoy bhakti. When we offer, like, we enjoy food, but Krishna enjoys the love with which the food is cooked. Krishna does not enjoy the food because food is matter. Uh, so Krishna is a transcendental enjoyer, who is Maheshwara. Maheshwara means he is a supreme proprietor, um, the true proprietor, one who exists as a overseer, Upadrishta. The example given we may have discussed in the second chapter Bhagavad Gita. Um, Upanishad gave this example of two birds sitting on a tree. One bird is caught up in this material world and is trying to enjoy, trying to taste different fruits. Uh, Sometimes the fruits are sweet and the bird becomes very happy, and other times the fruit is bitter and the bird suffers. Um, so the bird is trying to enjoy these fruits, but sometimes enjoyment and sometimes suffering. Um, but the other bird, who is a super soul, he is just watching, does not taste any fruit. He is just watching. This is called Drishta, Upadrishta, and Anumanta. For us to enjoy anything, Supreme Lord sanction is needed. If we do not have karma, we cannot enjoy it. um, 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 and our desire will not be fulfilled. So these are the two functionality of the super soul. So there are two enjoyer. uh, the living entity is the enjoyer of matter, the three gunas, the Paramatma. He is watching us, he is sanctioning or rejecting our desires. He does not enjoy matter, he is a transcendental enjoyer. And based on our desire to enjoy matter, we are given sad asad yoni janmashu, different species of life, to fulfill that, and the Lord sanctions those species of life. So this is about Purusha, and that's the summary of this whole section. um, this is something from Srila Prabhupada in the purport. Prabhupada says the fact is that every living individual living entity is eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada said, um, 3/4 of the creation is spiritual existence. 3/4 of the people are always in spiritual world, but 1/4 they make mistakes and they fall down. So we are those 1/4 of category of people who have forgotten our relationship with the Lord. So a living entity is eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and both of them are very intimately related as friends. There is a strong relationship between us and the Supreme Lord Krishna. We have a eternal relationship with him. But the living entity has a tendency to reject the sanction of the Supreme Lord and act independently in an attempt to dominate nature. But we have a free will. Um, we know what is the right thing to do. We have guidance, we have instruction, but we have the free will to reject it, to reject um, uh, um, what Krishna wants us to do. We have a free will to, we have a tendency. Prabhupada says the living entity has a tendency to reject the sanction of the Supreme Lord and act independently. Why we want to act independently? In an attempt to dominate nature, because we have desires to enjoy matter. So, to fulfill those desires, we have a tendency to reject the Supreme Lord. And because he has this tendency, he is called marginal energy of the Lord. Marginal means sometime we can do Krishna's will and sometime we can reject Krishna's will. So we are at the margin. Sometime in spiritual energy, and sometimes we are under Maya Shakti, illusory energy. Um, so, a living entity can be situated either uh, in the material energy or in the spiritual energy. Um, on this, something that I always say that helps us understand is um, um, if you go uh, um, on the shore of an ocean, then sometime the shoreliner, where there is a distinction between land and ocean, sometime that land becomes part of ocean. When ocean waves come and cover that land, then that land becomes ocean. And when the waves recede, then that land becomes land, that's not part of ocean anymore. So that's like marginal, sometime part of ocean and sometime part of land. Likewise, we are called tathastha shakti, or marginal potency, because we have the free will to be under to come under illusory energy of the Lord when we are attracted by Maya Shakti, or to come under the spiritual energy of the Lord when we are attracted under devotional service. That choice we have, that is a minute to minute choice that we have. And although we may know what is right, what is wrong, we have a tendency to reject the Lord. And that is the, and why we reject the Lord? because we want to dominate matter. We want to dominate the nature. Dominate nature means enjoy, for that reason. And that's why we can come either under illusory energy or material energy or into spiritual energy. Most of the time the illusory energy work on us, most of the time. One devotee went to Srila Prabhupada and he said, Prabhupada, I am Krishna conscious, but sometimes Maya attacks me. And Prabhupada says, no, sometime we come under Krishna, otherwise we are always in illusory energy of the Lord, because the energy is too powerful, based on our so many desires. That desire is the product of our karma, our previous wrong activities. They have given rise to so many desires, and the life is so many desires. And now there is a tug of war. Prabhupada used to say tug of war between our desires based on our previous karma and to serve Krishna. That tug of war is there, and we have to uh, um, mm, we have to fight. We have to fight. So the living entity can be situated either in the material energy or in the spiritual energy. As long as he is conditioned by material energy, the Supreme Lord, as his friend Super Soul, stays with him just to get him to return to spiritual energy. One thing that we can learn from Paramatma is patience. The Lord never forces us. We are trying to go against Krishna millions of lifetimes, birth after birth, and the Lord stays with us and He fulfills all our desire, and He simply waits when we will turn towards Him. And he doesn't do anything. um, he may inspire us, but we cannot listen to him. As Krishna says, in the last week we saw, only a devotee can understand and hear Paramatma's voice. Otherwise, we cannot hear the Lord. So he stays with us, whether we are in the ant body, dog's body, hawk's body, demigod's body, tree body. The Lord is there with us, and he is helping us to fulfill our desires. Anumanta, he's sanctioning our desires, and but we go through good and bad, whatever reaction we go through, but he's helping us to sanction. Now, there is one very beautiful story that we were discussing with another group of devotees, is the story of uh, um, Indra and Vratrasura. Um, so Indra um, um, Indra is the king of heaven, and one time the kingdom was um, captured by demons, and the head of the demon, the leader of the demon, was Vratrasura. Um, Vratrasura was a great devotee of the Lord in the previous life, great devotee of the Lord. But he became proud. He became proud because of he saw the Lord face to face in his previous life. His name was Maharaj Chitraketu. He saw Krishna, Sankarshan face to face, but he became little proud, because of which he made a mistake, a small mistake, and because of that mistake he was cursed, um, to become a demon. So he came in a demon body, and his name was Vratrasura. But because Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Neha Vikrama Nashosti Pratyavaya na Vidyate, there is no loss in this, for a person who is making progress in his spiritual life. There is no loss. So Vratrasura remembered that he was a pure devotee, but a small mistake, and he is in this demon body. But Vratrasura, although a pure devotee of the Lord, in a demon body, so he was doing his duty. And Indra, he approached Narayan, and Indra prayed to Narayan, please tell me how I can kill this Vratrasura, because he has abducted my kingdom. I am not king anymore. I want to kill him and get my kingdom back. So the Lord told Indra how to kill Vratrasura. And Indra killed Vratrasura. Not going in detail of that story, it's a long story with many, many lessons. And Indra killed Vratrasura. But Indra had to suffer for killing Vratrasura for 1000 years. For 1000 years, a witch who was made of blood and pus um, followed her like a ghost for 1000 years. And Indra has to hide himself um, in a stem of a plant because he was so afraid of his sinful reaction of killing the Brahmana, killing a great devotee Vratrasura, um, followed Indra for 1000 years. And then so many things happened, and because of which he was relieved of a sinful reaction. Because sinful reaction, one way to get relieved is through suffering. By suffering, we get rid of our sinful reaction. And Indra, so why I'm saying this is um, although Narayan himself told Vratrasura how to told Indra how to kill the demon Vratrasura, because it was Indra's desire that I want to kill. It was his decision. He had to go through the reaction. He had to go through it. So um, the Lord is patiently waiting in our lives to come back for since time immemorial. But based on our our desire, we may desire things which are not conducive for Krishna consciousness, and the Lord sanctions it. Lord sanctions it, and we enjoy that. But whatever sinful reaction is coming because of that enjoying spirit, um, um, that we go through difficult time, and then we go through suffering, and it further enhances our desire to enjoy independent of Krishna. And these two things are continuously following us, but the Lord is like he's patiently waiting when the living entity will turn to him. um, and then Prabhupada continues in the same purport. The Lord is always eager to take him back to the spiritual energy. Lord wants us to experience Krishna consciousness. He wants us to do that. But it is our own separate desires that separate us. Um, um, so who is holding us? Who is holding us away from Krishna is we ourselves. We ourselves. Our own desires. Our own desires to avoid Krishna, to not go close to Him. That's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, uh, mind is our worst enemy, mind is our best friend. Uh, we hold ourselves back. um, this one story, I don't know if I shared with devotees here, but it's very instructive. I will say it anyhow. There was a great sage. His name was Ashtavakra. Ashtavakra, and he came to the kingdom of Maharaj Janak, the father of Mother Sita. And Janak Maharaj asked this sage Ashtavakra, um, why is um, Maya not leaving me? Why doesn't she leave me and let me go to Krishna? Um, why I'm stuck here with so many desires? Why can't Krishna just attract me and pulls me towards him and liberate me? Why I have to go through so much struggle to go to Krishna? And Astavakra Muni, he went to the tree and he held the tree tight, And then he told that tree, leave me, why don't you leave me? And Maharaj Janak understood that we are holding ourselves away from Krishna, because Prabhupada says we have a tendency to reject the Lord. The Lord is guiding us. If we are sincere, if we are hearing, if we are reading, the Lord will tell us from within, um, this is favorable for Krishna consciousness, this is not favorable for Krishna consciousness, and we have a tendency to reject the Lord. And we are responsible for holding ourselves back. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was asked this question. Some people make progress so quickly, and some people make progress so slowly. Why? Both are practicing Krishna consciousness for 5 years. Some have gone so far, have become so serious and so sincere, and some are struggling. Some are struggling to chant few rounds and even no taste, and some are struggling. So why? And Saraswati Thakur said, because we have anchors. Some people have more anchors. Just like an anchor holds the boat to the shore, likewise, we have anchors all over our body, and these anchors are our desires. They hold us back. We have our own inhibitions. We have our own mental blockages, um, that that stops us, that does not let us to be free flow, um, in the arms of the Lord. Uh, he's standing right there. He is inviting us. He's calling us. We have the path. The path is the words of Bhagavad Gita, the words of previous acharyas, words of Srila Prabhupada. We need to move in the path, but we hold ourselves back. Um, so the Lord is always eager to take the conditioned soul back to spiritual energy, but due to his minute independence, the living entity is continually rejecting the association of Supreme Lord. So that's our position. We are rejecting the Supreme Lord. Uh, we are rejecting much less than how much we used to reject before, but Krishna will tell us where we are rejecting, and based on surrender we advance. How much surrendered we are to the will of the Lord. How much surrendered. Surrender means when the Lord tells us from within, this is wrong, don't do it, we don't do it. But when the Lord tells us from within, don't do it, and we still do it, then we reject the Lord. Why we reject the Lord? Because of our conditioning from our past. Uh, mm, and that hold us back. So due to the, and this is the, we have the independence, we have the free will. So due to his minute independence, the living entity is continually rejecting the association of Supreme Lord. This misuse of independence is the cause of his material strife or material struggle in the conditioned world, is the misuse of this independence. The Lord, therefore, is always giving instruction from within and from without. The Lord is very eager to help us. He is telling us from within and from outside. Uh, the Lord, from without, He gives instruction as stated in Bhagavad Gita. He's telling us what to do, what not to do through Bhagavad Gita. And from within, he tries to convince the living entity that his activities in material field are not conducive to real happiness. From within, the Lord is telling us as Paramatma. From without, the Lord is telling us through Bhagavad Gita, through scriptures, and through devotees who are speaking the words, who are repeating those scriptures. So through scriptures and through Paramatma, the Lord is telling us from outside and from within to go closer to Him. Um, um, just give it up and turn your faith toward me, then you will be happy, the Lord says. Thus, the intelligent person who places his faith in the Paramatma or the Supreme Personality of Godhead begins to advance toward the blissful eternal life of knowledge. So the living entity, when he surrenders to the message of the Lord, when he sets himself free without inhibitions and mental blockages, when he starts to run in the direction as Krishna wants him to run, the living entity start experiencing the bliss of knowledge, the joy of Krishna consciousness. When we let ourselves go in the hands of Krishna. Small video.
We want to be happy with so many ideas. Everyone is making his own idea. Now, see, but the rascals do not know the, what is the actual uh, process for getting happy. That is Krishna. That is Krishna. Nate vidu shartha gatengi Vishnu durasaya ji bhirottama. You can see in your country. They are trying so many things, so many skyscraper buildings, so many motor cars, so many big, big cities, but there is no happiness because they do not know what is missing. And that missing point we are giving. Here is take Krishna and you here. This is our Krishna consciousness. Krishna and the living entity, they are very intimately connected. Like father and son, or friend, or master and servant, uh, like that. We are very much intimately connected. But because we have forgotten our intimate relationship with Krishna and trying to become happy in this material world, therefore we have to undergo so much tribulation. Krishna Bhuliya Jeev Bhogavanchan. We entities, we are trying to become happy within this material world. Why you are in the material world? Why not in the spiritual world? The spiritual world, nobody can become enjoyer, bhokta. That is only Shukti. Bhokta of the Buddha. There is no mistake. There are also living entities, but they know perfectly well that the real enjoyer, proprietor is Krishna. That is spiritual kingdom. Similarly, even in this material world, if we understand perfectly well that we are not enjoyer, Krishna is enjoyer, then it is spiritual. This Krishna consciousness movement is trying to convince everyone that we are not enjoyer. Enjoyer is Krishna. Just like this whole body, the enjoyer is the stomach, and the hands and legs and eyes and ears and brains and everything. These should be engaged to find out the enjoyable thing and put it in the stomach. This is natural. Similarly, we are part and parcel of God or Krishna. We are not enjoyed. Every religion is accepted. Just like in Christian religion also, it is said, oh God, give us our daily bread. We cannot manufacture. It must come from God. That is Vedic also. Nitya Nityana Chetana Chetanana Ego jo Bahuna Vidudana God and Krishna. accept your enjoyable things as you like, then you become enjoyable. But if you accept things to be enjoyed by you, then the prina mukti. As Krishna offers you, then you become. If you make just like a diseased patient, if he wants to enjoy life in his own whimsical way, he will continue. But if he accepts the modes of life according to the direction of the physician, then he becomes free from it. So there are two methods, pravitti and nivitti. Pravitti means I've got inclination to eat this or to enjoy this. Why not? I shall do it. I've got my freedom. But you have no freedom, sir. Uh, you are simply, that is Maya. You have no freedom. Uh, we get experience. Suppose there's very nice palatable food. If I think, let me eat as much possible, the next day I will have to starve. Immediately disappear or indigestion.
So, Shri Prabhupada began by saying everyone in this material world is trying to acquire more and more skyscraper building, nice cars, nice homes. Uh, but after all those endeavor also, even after acquiring all the things they are desiring, they are not happy. So Krishna consciousness movement is about, we are telling them, take this Krishna and you will be happy. They don't know what is missing, why we are not happy, even though we are trying so hard to become happy in this material world, why we are still not happy. And we are telling them, you are missing one thing, which is Krishna. You add Krishna in your life and you will become happy. Because there is only one Bhokta. Bhokta means enjoyer. Bhokta Ram Yagya Tapasam Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. So there is only one Bhokta, Krishna. In spiritual world, everybody very well knows this fact that Krishna is the enjoyer. Uh, in material world, people are trying to become enjoyers, and for that reason, their struggle in material existence continues. Um, um, One point Prabhupada says that we may say that no, I have freedom to enjoy, but the fact is that we have no freedom. We have no freedom. That freedom is Maya. That freedom is Maya. We think this is my freedom, but it is Maya. Govind Seva Prabhu. Govind
Hare
Seva.
Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, this is a question on behalf of Apurva, Prabhuji.
Okay.
She's asking, you said right, Prabhuji, just now, like, uh, so if we die in a mode of goodness, we become demigods. Like, it decides what we, think at the time of death. It will decide our next life. So she asks, like, but if we become demigods, but we seek liberation, how should we act when we facing death?
You mean if we become demigod and we seek liberation?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Am I audible, Prabhuji?
Yeah, you are audible.
Prabhuji, so we seek liberation, Prabhuji. So while facing death, which mode should we be following? Because in three of the modes, like we don't achieve Krishna. We don't. We cannot reach Goloka. So if we want to reach there, how should we act while facing death,
Yeah,
Prabhuji?
we have to transcend the three modes.
Okay.
We will discuss this in the next chapter. Krishna says people in mode of goodness are also bound. They are called three material modes. Mode of goodness is also a material mode. Um, Devotional service, when we render the end of 14th chapter, Krishna says, when we render unfailing devotional service, unfailing devotional service, we transcend the modes. When we transcend the modes, we don't come back.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is Tushar. I just want to clarify the understanding, my understanding for verse number 22 and 23. So,
Okay.
in each living entity, at each living entity, there are three things or three entities like Jeev, that means the body, then soul, and then super soul. So, our soul, so there are two, and again, there are two enjoyers, the body and the super soul. And the soul, it has to understand that if it considers body as an enjoyer, then it will bring miseries. And if it considers super soul as a, if it understands super soul is a enjoyer, then it will take him back to Godhead. Is my understanding correct?
Well, just one thing. The two enjoyer is the soul and super soul. Um, um, the soul can surrender to the super soul and accept that the Lord is an enjoyer and try to serve Him. In that way, the living entity, the soul, we become truly happy, um, and we become liberated also. But when we try to act as enjoyer through the medium of body and through different activities, um, um, that is actually that is binding us. And the reason we have those desires is because uh, our previous karma, because of which we have those desires, those conditioning, and we sincerely have to take shelter of the Lord to free us from those that conditioning. We are helpless. Does that help you, Tushar Prabhu?
Yes, yes. That means the soul, it has to understand that I'm not the enjoyer, but the super soul is the enjoyer. Yeah, got it, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Prabhuji, I have one more question.
Okay.
Prabhuji, so um, once you said that a woman's power, like when she becomes a wife, since she is selfless and thinks about her husband and children, she achieves like liberation. But like while facing death, I am thinking of my kids and not Krishna. Will I be still in this bubble? Like, will I still be like taking birth as a human?
Well, Krishna says, whatever we remember at the time of death, that will decide our next birth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, if our karma allows, there is a high chance if we are thinking of our children or of somebody we love, we may be in their association in the next birth if karma allows.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Uh, Another thing is, if we think of, suppose if our husband is a pure devotee,
Mm-hmm.
or if our son is a pure devotee, and if we think of them, then we go back to Godhead also,
Mm-hmm.
because we associate with them and because they are in the spiritual world, that will elevate us to spiritual world as well.
Okay.
So thinking of a spiritual master and being attached to a spiritual master is as good as being attached to Krishna, because they are non-different. Same thing can happen. So if the attachment, um, Kapila Muni says in Shrimad Bhagavatam, um, if the attachment to a devotee is a source of liberation, but attachment to matter is a source of bondage.
Mm.
Does that answer?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, thank you.
The same with devotional service. So any any person who leaves his body thinking that okay, I had this service to do. So is it the same thing that that qualifies him to
Repeat
uh,
your question again. If you leave the body,
thinking of a service, devotional service that he is attached to? Is it the same result?
um, um, there is a high chance if you are thinking of dressing the Lord or doing arati or cooking for Krishna, it's as good as thinking of Krishna. That's my understanding. If the service is, if it's a pure service to Krishna, attachment to seva will liberate us. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. We'll continue. We'll try to finish this chapter now. He who knows about material nature, Purusha, um, and the modes will surely attain liberation from repeated birth. So, this is the result of what Krishna said. If we understand the soul, the Lord, and the gunas which are binding the soul, um, and can distinguish ourself as a spirit soul instead of being entangling in the matter, once who has that knowledge, he can become liberated from repeated birth. uh, the reason one has repeated birth is because one do not have that knowledge. uh, um, when one lacks that knowledge, one will act on a material platform that will bind him. But one who has that knowledge, one who has realized, he will naturally serve the Lord. Ones who have that understanding, ones who is clear about it, he will naturally serve the Lord, and he will naturally go towards liberation. Uh, one has to realize how Jiva is separate from Paramatma and how Jiva is entangled in matter. Uh, Krishna describes four ways to realize this. So, in order for us to be liberated, we have to realize Krishna, we have to realize the Lord in our heart. Uh, um, we have to be fixed in that knowledge. Fixed in that knowledge means we have to act on that knowledge. So the idea is that we have to know Paramatma, uh, and d- develop on our relationship with him. We have to deepen our relationship with the Lord. And Krishna says, then we become liberated once we re-establish our relationship with the Lord. And Krishna says there are four ways to establish or to realize Paramatma, to establish our relationship with the Lord in our heart. There are four ways. Um, and Krishna says some sees Paramatma through meditation. So one path is Ashtanga Yoga, where um, um, one practice asanas, um, pranayam, withdraw the senses from the sense objects, from all material engagements, and then focuses on the Lord in the heart. dharana, dhyan, and samadhi. And slowly, slowly, by that process, one becomes purified of material desires and one realizes the Lord in the heart. And that's a path of Ashtanga. Similar is a path of Jnana, where one goes to the forest in a renounced order and studies all the Vedas and scriptures, meditate on them, uh, contemplate, speculate, and do many, many things um, in the right association to deepen and develop and realize Paramatma in the heart. That's the goal of Gyanis also. And then there are um, who work without fruitive desires. They are called Nishkama Karma Yoga, without fruitive desires. They work without attachment, um, um, and they also eventually come to realize the Lord. And if you remember 12th chapter, Krishna says many options. Last chapter we saw, and Krishna says highest is if you can always fix your mind on me. If you cannot do that, fix your intelligence on me. Uh, if you cannot do that, follow the regulated principles of devotional service. If you cannot do that, uh, um, work for me. If you cannot do that, then perform Nishkama Karma Yoga, work without material desires, and that will eventually bring us to the path of realizing Krishna. Eventually, that will take us up the ladder, up the ladder, up the ladder. So, in Shrimad Bhagavatam, Krishna tells Uddhav, I have made these paths of Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, uh, Nishkam Karma Yoga for different people. Um, but all these paths are mentioned in the scriptures for one common purpose is to realize Krishna, is to realize the Lord. That's the only purpose of all these paths. And then he says some people are very frustrated from the material world. I recommend them to go to the forest and take to the path of Ashtanga and Jnana. And some people are very attached to their work. Then I recommend them that you work without attachment. I recommend them the path of Nishkam Karma Yoga. And those who are balanced, Krishna says, well, they can realize me by the path of bhakti. Those who are neither too attached nor too frustrated, um, balanced people, they can take to the path of bhakti. And Krishna describes in the sixth chapter Bhagavad Gita, that person who can remember me is the best among all the yogi. And same thing after describing these path in Bhagavatam 11th canto, Krishna says those who can follow the path of bhakti um, is the best among all. Similar conclusion as we saw in Bhagavad Gita, and same conclusion Krishna gave um, in the 12th chapter when he gave different option. The first option he says is fix your mind on me. And then if you cannot do Nishkama Karma Yoga, then last option 8 to 12, Krishna says last option is perform Jnana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. But the goal, the idea of all these different direction based on the condition of the conditioning of the living entity, he can take different paths, but the goal is eventually everyone should come to realize Krishna and reawaken that relationship, because otherwise um, um, guna sangastya sadasar um, yonishu yoni janmashu, based on the gunas, repeated births one after another. Only in human form of life we have an opportunity to uh, question and to reawaken our relationship. Other species, there is no opportunity. Uh, uh, Others, although not having knowledge, worship the Supreme Lord upon hearing about Him. So He said there are many paths. I have given the path of Ashtanga, Jnana, and Nishkama Karma Yoga. But for others, uh, they may have no knowledge, they may be completely engrossed in their material life, but they worship the Supreme Lord upon hearing about Him. But they just happen to come across Bhagavad Gita, they understand, oh, Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they start worshipping Him just by hearing. They may have no knowledge, just by hearing, they start worshipping Him. They surpass the path of birth and death due to their faithful hearing, Shruti Parayana, from authoritative sources. But because they put faith in what they hear, and um, uh, faithful hearing. So, faithful hearing is they hear, and whatever Krishna says, they put faith in that, uh, and then they try to follow. And just by hearing, even though they may be very much attached before, just by hearing and practicing, they also escape the cycle of birth and death. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, this verse is particularly applicable to modern society because in modern society there is practically no education in spiritual matters. This hearing process is very important. So the first thing that we say before we start speaking is glorifying spiritual master, and we say Om Agyan Timirandhasya. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, um, and I'm talking to myself. If we remember our past, before we were introduced to Krishna consciousness and our activities, it was on a bodily platform. Um, mm, it was an ignorant living. And that's the birth of a living entity is also ignorant. So, Om Agyanti Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya, my spiritual master came in my life out of nowhere. He all of a sudden appeared in my life with a lamp light or a torch light of knowledge, and he illuminated my heart with knowledge. Um, and That is called faithful hearing. How he illuminated my heart? Through Vani, through words. um, and By putting faithful hearing and following, uh, these people can also cross over the cycle of birth and death. According to Lord Chaitanya, this hearing process is very important. According to Lord Chaitanya, if he hears the transcendental vibration, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, he can progress. Again, um, uh, the principle Sri Prabhupada is mentioning in the chanting of the holy name is also hearing, hearing Bhagavad Gita and hearing the holy name. And as we hear them, we make progress. Uh, so this is the path of bhakti, and I think this is the last verse of today. The result of such mature vision is no degradation. One who can have that vision of seeing the of realizing the Lord Paramatma. Samam pashyan hi sarvatra samavasthitam ishwaram na hinashti atmanatmanam tato yati param gatim. Uh, so he attained param gatim. Param gatim means param is transcendental destination, which Prabhupada describes as spiritual word, transcendental destination. Tato yati. So he attains. Who attains? Na hinashti. Hinashti is degrade. One who does not degrade himself by the deviating mind, and who don't degrade himself. um, Samam Pashyan hi Sarvatra. Pashyan is to see, and Sarvatra is everywhere. Ishwaram is Ishwar, God, Super Soul. So one who sees Ishwara, um, uh, Samavasthitam, uh, that Ishvara is situated in every living entity, Sarvatra, in every living entity. One who sees that, he does not degrade himself by his mind. So one who sees the super soul equally present everywhere in every living entity, he does not degrade himself by his deviating mind, and thus he attain the spiritual world. So one who can realize the super soul, and one who can realize that every living entity is a spirit soul, they are all on their journey eagerly looking for Krishna. Some may be looking in right direction, some may be misdirected, but everyone is looking for the same Krishna factor in their life, and they are wandering. They are wandering in sadasad yoni janmashu. They are wandering in different species of life, having the same hunger for Krishna. And the Lord is sitting in their heart, and the Lord is also helping them, guiding them in their journey. They are doing uh, Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani. They are doing Brahman or they are going up and down in different species, in different planets, in different ways. But the soul is always eagerly looking for Krishna, but because of ignorance, the soul does not even realize he's looking for Krishna. One who can see a mature vision. Mature vision means one who can see that in an ant, in a cockroach, in a spider, in every living entity, he does not degrade himself by his deviating mind, because the living entity is always trying to enjoy. Uh, when the living entities does not have that spiritual vision, then the living entity will try to exploit other living entities, will try to exploit, and like Prabhupada said, dominate over material nature. So we try to exploit. But when we can see the soul and Paramatma, and what the soul is actually hankering for, Krishna factor, uh, then one develop a spiritual vision. In that spiritual vision, one doesn't degrade by his mind. Okay, okay. Uh, we will not start the next chapter unless I see one chat. Uh, okay, this I think we already addressed. Uh, um, anyone has any question, or can we end
Uh,
here?
Prabhuji, this is Sheetala Prabhuji. Uh,
Sheetal Prabhu,
yeah,
yes.
I have one question, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
You have explained me about Karma Yoga, Ashtana Yoga, and this yogas. So I just want to know, like, for human being, like whatever we are living, so we have the Karma Yoga, root to desires and all this. What about animals, Prabhuji? Animals doesn't go meditation and give the knowledge, and that is also soul.
Mm.
Animal inside also a soul. So we are also a soul. So we got the body because we are human being. They got that body, they become animals. So which yoga they will come under? So
Yeah, Prabhu, they cannot perform yoga. It is described in Mahabharata. Bhishma Dev says that what distinguishes the human body from an animal body is the human body can um, have a dharma. Um, uh, Without a dharma, Bhishma Dev compares a human as good as animal. In other words, uh, in an animal body, what we can do is we can give them prasadam, and they don't have capacity to deliver themselves, because they do not have that free will, that will to question. And one time, based on the same concern, Haridas Thakur was asked by Lord Chaitanya, because Haridas Thakur, Mahaprabhu empowered him. Haridas Thakur is Namacharya. Um, so Mahaprabhu asked him that how will the animals be delivered? What what about them? Now, um, different things. Um, but Haridas Thakur says that when somebody chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra loudly, then that will deliver the animals, because they cannot chant but they can hear. By hearing, they make progress. And Prabhupada said, these animals, if they eat Mahaprasad of the Lord once in their life, they will get a human birth, next birth, and their spiritual journey will continue just by eating Mahaprasad once. um, but they cannot practice devotional service, Prabhu. But whoever you see, you can be compassionate to them in these different ways. Devotees, what they do is, when they see any animal or even plants while walking, every time they try to chant little loudly so that all living entities can hear. And that's why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced Harinam Sankirtan, is you loudly chant on the streets even if there is no living entity, because there are so many plants who are getting benefited, and because you become the reason for giving them Krishna. Now, with our with our vision, we may not be able to see how they are making progress. We may just think that, oh, I am chanting, nothing is happening, but we may not be able to see, but uh, the benefit is there. The benefit is there. um, and because if you become the instrument in giving them Krishna, uh, um, you grow much quicker in your spiritual life than if we are concerned only about ourselves. And that's where Mahaprabhu said, if somebody chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra loudly, uh, he gets benefit 1000 times more than chanting in the mind, because by chanting loudly, everybody is benefited. Even if you are in a room and nobody is there, there are unlimited living entities present in the room, which we may not see. But if you see with the microscope, you will see there are bacteria and amoebas and microscopic living entities everywhere. Is that all right, Sheetal Prabhu?
Yes, yes, Prabhuji. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Vancha kalpataru vaishya kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnav.
Yeah. Get well soon, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna Prabhuji,
Hare
Dandavad.